The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as Lana's voice cut through the garage like a rusty blade. I'd been under her precious BMW for the better part of an hour, fixing the oil leak she'd been complaining about for weeks. Now she stood in the doorway of my shop, designer heels clicking against concrete, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else on earth. "We need to talk, Jake," she said, arms crossed over her tailored blazer. "Tonight." I rolled out from under the car, wiping my hands on an old rag. 23 years of marriage, and I could read her moods like a repair manual. This wasn't good news coming my way. "Let me guess," I said, standing up and stretching my back. "Your mother called again?" Lana's jaw tightened. "This isn't a joke. My parents need to move in with us. Dad's medical bills are crushing them, and Mom can't handle caring for him alone anymore." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You're serious." "Completely serious. They'll take the guest room and the den downstairs. It's temporary. Maybe 6 months while they get back on their feet." The shop suddenly felt too small. I'd built this place from nothing, working 18-hour days for years to give Lana the life she wanted. Our house was my sanctuary, the one place where I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't. The thought of her parents, who'd never missed a chance to remind me I wasn't good enough for their daughter, invading that space made my stomach turn. "Jake, are you listening to me?" "I'm listening. I'm just trying to figure out when you decided to completely lose your mind." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Excuse me?" "Your parents hate me, Lana. Your mother still introduces me as the mechanic, like it's some kind of disease. And your father—" I shook my head. "Remember last Christmas when he asked if I'd ever considered getting a real job? They're family," she said, her voice rising, "and they need our help. There are assisted living places. Good ones. I'll help pay for it. They're not going to some warehouse for old people." Lana stepped closer, and I could smell her expensive perfume mixed with something else, something that reminded me of the fancy hotel lobby where she'd taken me for our anniversary last year. "This is happening, Jake. Either you're on board or what?" She met my eyes without flinching. "Or I'm done." The words hung in the air like exhaust fumes. I'd heard ultimatums before, usually from customers who thought they could bully me into lowering my prices. But this was different. This was my wife of over 2 decades telling me she was ready to throw it all away over her parents. "You're giving me an ultimatum," I said slowly. "I'm telling you what's going to happen." I looked at her standing there in her perfect outfit, her perfectly styled hair, her perfectly manicured nails that had never touched a wrench or changed a tire. When had she become this person? When had I become someone she could threaten? "I need time to think about it," I said finally. "You have until tomorrow night. I already told them they could start packing." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Jake, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories." After she left, I sat in my office chair, staring at the framed photo on my desk, Lana and me on our wedding day, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. She'd been working as a secretary at a small real estate office then, and I'd just opened my shop. We'd been broke but happy, or so I'd thought. Now she was pulling down 6 figures selling million-dollar properties to tech executives and doctors, while I was still here with my hands dirty and my back aching. Maybe her parents were right. Maybe she had outgrown me. I was about to close up when my phone buzzed with a text from Dan, my oldest friend who worked nights at Murphy's bar downtown. "Your wife's here with some guy in an expensive suit. Thought you should know." I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before it sank in. Lana had said she was going home to make dinner. She'd been specific about it. Salmon and that fancy rice she'd learned to make from some cooking show. I grabbed my keys and drove toward Murphy's, my mind racing. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe it was a client meeting that ran late. Maybe Dan was wrong about what he was seeing. But deep in my gut, I knew better. Murphy's was packed for a Thursday night. I found a spot at the end of the bar where I could see the back booths without being obvious about it. Dan caught my eye and nodded toward the corner. There she was, leaning across the table toward a man I didn't recognize. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. They were sitting close, too close, and when he reached over to touch her hand, she didn't pull away. I watched for 20 minutes, nursing a beer I didn't want. Watched him lean in to whisper something that made her laugh. Watched her play with her wedding ring, the same nervous habit she'd had since college. Watched them leave together, his hand on the small of her back as they walked out. Dan appeared beside me as the door closed behind them. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. First time I've seen them together, he said. But Jake, they weren't acting like strangers. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Lana's car wasn't there. She came home at 11:30, slipping into bed like nothing had happened. I pretended to be asleep, listening to her breathing in the darkness, wondering how long she'd been lying to me. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up, leaving only a note on the kitchen counter. Think about what I said. This is important to me. I spent the day going through the motions at the shop, but my mind kept wandering. Every interaction we'd had over the past few months took on new meaning. The late nights she'd blamed on difficult clients, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the way she'd started dressing differently, buying expensive clothes and jewelry I knew we couldn't afford, the way she'd stopped looking at me like she used to. That evening, I was cleaning up when I found her purse on the workbench where she'd left it the day before. I'd never been the type to snoop through her things, but something made me stop. Inside, tucked behind her credit cards, was a hotel key card, the Meridian, the fanciest place in town, and underneath that, receipts for dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of, places where the appetizers cost more than our usual date nights. My phone rang, making me jump. Lana's name flashed on the screen. I'm working late again tonight, she said without preamble. Don't wait up. Another difficult client? I asked. Something like that. Have you thought about what we discussed? I looked down at the hotel keycard in my hand. Still thinking? Well, think faster. Mom and Dad are expecting an answer. The line went quiet, and I realized she'd already hung up. I sat there for a long time, holding that keycard and thinking about ultimatums, about 23 years of marriage and trust, and all the ways a person can betray someone without saying a word. Then I picked up my phone and called Dan. I need a favor, I said when he answered, and I need you to keep your mouth shut about it. The Meridian Hotel sat on the edge of downtown like a glass and steel monument to money I'd never have. I parked across the street, feeling out of place in my work clothes and 15-year-old pickup truck. The valet probably made more in tips than I cleared in a week. Dan had agreed to help without asking too many questions. He'd positioned himself in the lobby bar with a clear view of the elevators, texting me updates every few minutes. I felt like a private investigator in some cheap movie, except this was my life falling apart in real time. At 7:43, Dan's text came through. She's here, same guy from last night, heading to elevator. I waited another hour before going inside. The desk clerk barely looked up when I approached, probably assuming I was there to fix something. Excuse me, I said, pulling out the keycard I'd found in Lana's purse. My wife asked me to grab something from our room, but I can't remember the number. The clerk scanned the card with practiced efficiency. Room 1247, sir. Elevators are to your right. My legs felt unsteady as I rode up to the 12th floor. Part of me hoped I'd find the room empty, that there was some innocent explanation for everything. But when I pressed my ear to the door, I heard voices inside, Lana's laugh mixing with a deeper male voice I didn't recognize. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The tone told me everything. I took the elevator back down and waited in my truck until they emerged 2 hours later. This time, I was ready with my phone camera. The photos weren't great, taken from across the street through a dirty windshield, but they clearly showed Lana and her mystery man walking out together, his arm around her waist. When she got home that night, I was waiting in the kitchen. How was work? I asked. Exhausting, she said, not meeting my eyes. The Peterson deal is more complicated than we thought. The Peterson deal. That's right. She opened the refrigerator and stared inside like the answers to life's mysteries were hidden behind the milk and leftover Chinese food. We might need to work through the weekend. I nodded slowly. Must be some deal. It is. Jake, have you made a decision about my parents? I looked at my wife of 23 years, standing in our kitchen, lying to my face with the same casual ease she used to order coffee. When had she become such a good actress? I need a few more days, I said. Her shoulders tensed. They can't wait much longer. Dad's condition is getting worse. I said I need more time. She turned to face me then, and for a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Fine, she said. But don't drag this out, Jake. Some decisions can't wait forever. The next morning, I drove to the bank and requested copies of our joint account statements for the past 6 months. What I found made my hands shake with rage. Withdrawals I'd never authorized, thousands of dollars taken out in cash over the past few months, payments to restaurants, hotels, and stores I'd never heard of. Our savings account, the one we'd been building for retirement, had been nearly cleaned out. I sat in my truck in the bank parking lot, staring at the numbers until they blurred together. She hadn't just been cheating on me, she'd been stealing from me, funding her affair with money we'd saved together. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email." The email contained a single photo, Lana and her mystery man kissing in the hotel lobby. The timestamp showed it was taken the night before, while she was supposedly working late on the Peterson deal. I called the number that had sent the text. "Don't ask who I am," a woman's voice said when she answered. "Just know that I'm not your enemy." "Who is this?" "Someone who thinks you deserve to know the truth. His name is Brent Morrison. He's a developer, married, 3 kids. He's been seeing your wife for about 4 months." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of watching good people get played." The line was quiet for a moment. "There's more, Jake. Things you need to know about both of them." "What kind of things?" "Meet me tomorrow at the diner on 5th Street, 1 o'clock. Come alone." The line went quiet. I tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. That night, Lana announced she'd be working late again. I followed her to Morrison Development, a sleek office building downtown. She met Brent Morrison in the parking garage. I recognized him from the hotel photos. They talked for a few minutes before getting into his black Mercedes and driving away. I followed them to a restaurant called Chez Laurent, the kind of place where they probably charge $20 for a salad. I parked where I could see them through the window, watching them share wine and laugh like they didn't have a care in the world. My phone rang, Lana's name on the screen. "Hey, honey," she said, and I could hear restaurant noise in the background. "I'm going to be really late. The client is being difficult." "Sounds like it," I said, watching her through the window as she lied to me. "Don't work too hard." "I won't. Love you." She hung up, and I watched her put her phone away and reach across the table to hold Morrison's hand. The next day, I arrived at the diner early and chose a booth in the back. At exactly 1 o'clock, a woman in her 40s slid into the seat across from me. She had short brown hair and tired eyes, and she looked like she hadn't slept well in weeks. "You're Jake," she said. It wasn't a question. "And you are?" "Nina Walsh. I work with your wife at Pinnacle Realty." She ordered coffee from the waitress, then leaned forward. "I've been watching this train wreck for months, and I can't stay quiet anymore." "Why now?" "Because they're planning to screw you over completely." Nina pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages. "Lana's been planning to leave you for weeks. She's just waiting for the right moment." I read through the messages, my stomach sinking with each line. Lana discussing divorce lawyers with Nina, planning to clean out their joint accounts, talking about moving in with Morrison once his own divorce was finalized. "She's using the thing with her parents as cover," Nina continued, "making you look like the bad guy for refusing to help family. When you finally say no, she'll have her excuse to leave. And if I say yes? Then her parents move in, make your life miserable until you can't stand it anymore, and she still leaves. Either way, you lose." I handed her phone back. "Why are you helping me?" Nina's expression hardened. "Because Lana threw me under the bus last month when a deal went bad, blamed me for her mistakes and nearly cost me my job, and because Morrison is a piece of garbage who thinks he can treat people however he wants." "What do you want me to do about it?" "Fight back," she said simply. "Stop being the nice guy who gets walked on. Make them pay for what they're doing to you." She slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything you need is in there. Photos, financial records, copies of text messages. Use it wisely." After she left, I sat in my truck and went through the envelope's contents. Photos of Lana and Morrison together at various locations around the city, bank records showing Morrison had been paying for their hotel rooms and dinners, screenshots of text messages between Lana and Nina discussing their plans. But the last item in the envelope made my hands shake with rage. It was a printed email from Lana to Morrison, dated just 2 days ago. "Jake is being stubborn about my parents, but it doesn't matter. I've already talked to a lawyer about dividing assets. The shop is worth more than he thinks, and I'm entitled to half of everything. Once this is over, we can start fresh. I can't wait to be done with this charade." I read it 3 times, each word hitting me like a physical blow. 23 years of marriage reduced to a charade. My life's work dismissed as just another asset to be divided up. That night, Lana came home and found me waiting in the living room. "I've made my decision about your parents," I said. She sat down across from me, and for the first time in months, she looked genuinely interested in what I had to say. "They can't move in," I continued. "I'm sorry, but I won't do it." Her face went through several expressions, surprise, anger, and finally, something that looked almost like relief. "I see," she said carefully. "And that's your final answer?" "It is." She nodded slowly. "Then I guess we don't have anything left to talk about." "I guess we don't." She stood up and walked toward the stairs, then paused. I'll be staying at my sister's tonight. We can discuss the details tomorrow. After she left, I sat in the empty house and thought about ultimatums and betrayal and all the ways a marriage can end. Then I picked up my phone and started making calls. If Lana wanted to play games, I was ready to play. But she was about to learn that mechanics know how to take things apart just as well as they know how to put them back together. And some things, once they're broken, can never be fixed. The next morning, I drove to Morrison Development with Nina's evidence folder on the passenger seat. The building's lobby was all marble and glass, designed to intimidate people like me. But I'd spent 23 years being intimidated by Lana's world, and I was done with that. The receptionist looked me up and down, taking in my work clothes and calloused hands. Can I help you? I'm here to see Brent Morrison. Tell him it's about the Peterson deal. She made a phone call, spoke in hushed tones, then directed me to the elevator. 14th floor. His assistant will meet you. Morrison's office was exactly what I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, and walls covered with photos of him shaking hands with politicians and celebrities. The man himself stood behind a massive desk, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Mr. Henderson. Jake Henderson. I didn't offer to shake his hand. Right. My assistant said you wanted to discuss the Peterson deal, but I'm not familiar with that project. His voice carried the kind of smooth confidence that came from never being told no. Maybe this will refresh your memory. I pulled out one of the hotel photos and placed it on his desk. Room 1247 at the Meridian, last Tuesday night. Morrison's face went pale, but he recovered quickly. I don't know what you think you're playing. I placed another photo on the desk. That's what I think you're doing. Playing with my wife, playing with my marriage, playing with money that doesn't belong to you. He sat down heavily in his chair. What do you want? I want you to understand something. I leaned forward, placing my hands on his expensive desk. You think you're dealing with some dumb mechanic who's too stupid to fight back. But you're wrong. I pulled out the bank statements showing the cash withdrawals. Lana's been stealing from our joint account to fund your little romance. That's a crime, Morrison. And since you've been benefiting from it, that makes you an accessory. You can't prove any of that. Can't I? I showed him the receipt from Chez Laurent. This dinner cost $400, paid for with cash that came out of my account the same day. Want to bet the restaurant has security cameras? Morrison's confident facade was cracking. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear. Stop seeing my wife. Stop taking her calls. Stop pretending you're going to leave your own family for her. And if I don't? I smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then I take everything I have to your wife. Nina Walsh gave me your home address, Morrison. Nice house in Westfield. I bet your wife would be very interested to see these photos. You wouldn't. Try me. I gathered up the photos and stood to leave. You have until tonight to make your choice. After that, all bets are off. I was halfway to the door when he called after me. She doesn't love you, you know, Lana. She told me all about your marriage, how miserable she's been. You can threaten me all you want, but you can't make someone love you. I turned back to face him. You're right. I can't make her love me, but I can make sure she doesn't get to walk away with half of everything I've built while she's been lying to me. What's that supposed to mean? It means your girlfriend is about to learn that ultimatums work both ways. I left Morrison's office and drove straight to my lawyer's office. Tom Bradley had handled the legal work when I'd bought the shop, and he'd been straight with me then. I needed someone I could trust now. Jake, he said, looking up from a stack of papers as I walked into his office. What brings you here? I dropped Nina's envelope on his desk. My wife is cheating on me, and she's been stealing money from our joint accounts to pay for it. I need to know what my options are. Tom went through the evidence methodically, asking questions and taking notes. When he finished, he leaned back in his chair and whistled softly. This is pretty damning stuff. The financial records alone would be enough to protect your assets in a divorce proceeding. What about the shop? If you can prove she was planning to leave you while simultaneously stealing marital assets, a judge would be very unsympathetic to her claims. You might be able to keep the business entirely. And if she tries to claim I was abusive or controlling? Tom tapped the printed email from Lana to Morrison. This email shows premeditation. She was planning to leave regardless of what you did about her parents. Any claims of abuse would look like strategic positioning for the divorce? I felt something loosen in my chest for the first time in weeks. So what's our next move? We file for divorce first, before she has a chance to. We freeze the joint accounts to prevent further theft, and we document everything. Tom leaned forward. But Jake, I have to ask, are you sure this is what you want? Marriage counseling might... She's been lying to me for months, I interrupted. stealing from me, planning to leave me while making me think it was my fault. There's nothing left to save. That afternoon, I went home and started going through Lana's things. In her dresser drawer, I found credit card statements for accounts I didn't know existed, thousands of dollars in charges for clothes, jewelry, and hotels, all of it hidden from me. In her laptop bag, I discovered a folder labeled New Life. Inside were printouts from apartment hunting websites, all for places near Morrison's office. There were also business cards for divorce attorneys and a handwritten note that made my stomach turn. Remember, emotional abuse angle. Jake's controlling behavior, arte parents, financial dependence. Paint yourself as victim. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. They'd know every conversation we'd had about her parents, every argument about money, every time she'd accused me of not supporting her dreams. It had all been theater, designed to set up her exit strategy. My phone rang, Lana's name on the screen. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Can you meet me at the house tonight?" "I'll be there." "Good. And Jake, I hope you've had time to think about everything, about what you really want." "I have," I said. "I know exactly what I want now." She arrived at 7, looking nervous for the first time in months. I was waiting in the living room, the divorce papers Tom had prepared sitting on the coffee table. "Before you say anything," she began, "I want you to know that I never meant for things to get this complicated, but we both know our marriage has been over for a long time." "Have we? Come on, Jake. We've been going through the motions for years. We want different things, we're different people. Maybe it's time to admit that and move on." She sat down across from me, and I could see her trying to read my expression. "You're right," I said finally. "We are different people. I'm the kind of person who honors his commitments, and you're the kind of person who steals money from joint accounts to fund affairs with married men." Her face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." I slid the bank statements across the table. $43,000, Lana. That's how much you've stolen from me over the past 4 months. She stared at the papers, her hands shaking. "It's not stealing. It's our money. Our money that you used to pay for hotel rooms with Brent Morrison. Our money that bought dinners and jewelry for your boyfriend. Our money that you were planning to use to set up your new life while you painted me as an abusive husband in divorce court." I placed the printed email on top of the bank statements. "Charade. That's what you called our marriage. 23 years reduced to a charade." Lana's composure finally cracked. "How did you get that?" "Does it matter? The question is, what are we going to do about it?" She looked around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. The furniture we'd picked out together, the photos from happier times, the life we'd built that she'd been so eager to throw away. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. I picked up the divorce papers and held them out to her. "I want you to sign these, tonight. No lawyers, no negotiations, no claims about abuse or controlling behavior. You take your personal belongings and your car, and you walk away. In exchange, I don't send copies of everything I've found to Morrison's wife, your boss, or the district attorney." "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." I leaned forward. "You wanted to give me an ultimatum about your parents. Well, here's mine. Sign the papers and disappear, or I make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you really are." She stared at the papers for a long time, tears streaming down her face. "Jake, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but—" "You didn't make mistakes, Lana. You made choices. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every night you spent with Morrison while telling me you were working late. Those were all choices. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did. You just didn't want to look like the bad guy while you were doing it." She picked up the pen with trembling fingers. "And if I sign this, you'll keep quiet about everything? As long as you stay away from me and don't try to cause any more trouble, your secrets are safe." It took her 20 minutes to sign all the papers, tears falling on the pages as she wrote her name. When she finished, she looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I did love you once," she said. "I want you to know that." "I know," I replied. "But love isn't enough when it's built on lies." She gathered her purse and walked toward the door, then paused. "What about my things?" "Pack them tomorrow while I'm at work. Leave your key on the kitchen counter when you're done." After she left, I sat in the empty house and thought about endings and beginnings and all the ways a person can survive betrayal. The silence felt different now, not lonely, but peaceful, like I could finally breathe again. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Morrison called his wife tonight. Told her everything, thought you should know." I smiled and deleted the message. Some problems had a way of solving themselves. Outside it started to rain, washing the streets clean and carrying away the debris of the day. I poured myself a drink and raised it in a toast to the empty room. "Here's to ultimatums," I said aloud, "and to the people who think they can give them without consequences." The house was quiet, but it was my quiet now, and for the first time in months that felt like enough.